Hello and welcome to a Wednesday live right here on the early line on SportsGrid and all across the SportsGrid network. That includes sportsgrid.com/watch, where you can find your favorite destination and consume everything all across the grid. I am Ben Stevens. He is Donnie right side. We are together here for the next 3 hours up until 11 a.m. Eastern time all across the SportsGrid network. Now, 2024 DRS is a leap year. That means an additional day in the month of February. Today is February 28th. One more day tomorrow. That is February 29th. Then it's the month of March. And as we approach March in all of basketball, college hoops and the NBA alike, the madness and the chaos and the intensity ratchets up just a little bit more. We saw that on a small preview with 3 days left in the month of February yesterday. 2 days left in February until March on this Wednesday.
Let's be real, too. Let's take a look at the sports landscape. It's always good 12 months out of the year, but we wait to get through January. We wait to get through February. Now we have to wait an extra day on the leap year till we get till March, because you know what March means? March means March Madness. At the end of March means Major League Baseball season. Another step closer to the hockey and NBA playoffs, and also, more importantly, Ben, another step closer to college football season and the NFL season. We are so close here to getting out of the winter doldrums here in the Northeast. I can't wait. It's almost March, and let's get it started.
We are 48 hours away from the month of March where the madness intensifies in college basketball, and that effort and intensity picks up in the NBA as the association nears the home stretch of this regular season and that playoff push. Let's make sure we welcome in our SportsGrid radio audience here. Opening hour of a Wednesday, live on the early line on SportsGrid, Sirius XM channel 159. All of our radio terrestrial affiliates now in the fold as well. He is Donnie. I am Ben. And I talked about some madness. How about some madness last night in the land? The Cleveland Cavaliers, the Dallas Mavericks, two of the hottest teams across the entirety of the NBA. And we got a show in Cleveland from 59 feet, well beyond half court. Max Strus hits a game-winning buzzer beater, the second longest game-winning buzzer beater in NBA history, from 59 feet away as the Cavs win at the Horn 121-119 against the Dallas Mavericks.
And by the way, we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but let's just understand why we love college basketball, too, and why you just said this is one of the longest buzzer beaters. That never should be the case here in the NBA because that stupid rule to call a timeout and you get to move the basketball up three-quarter court here. That's a ridiculous rule. We'll get to that a little bit later, but that is an exciting finish and a big-time win for the Cleveland Cavaliers. And also, from an NBA point of view, we see it all the time now, Ben. Do you know why we probably don't have these long shots? Nobody wanted to take that. Max, like, you know what, I will, because most of the time, I don't want to miss that. Even if it means we can win the game if I make it, the chances of me making it are slim. I'd rather the horn sound than I'll fake like I didn't get it off in time. Therefore, it won't account against my statistics. Good for you, Max Strus, yesterday, taking that shot, making that shot, and lifting up the city of Cleveland.
To me, DRS, that was a design play. It seemed as though the Cavs had practiced that. If they needed something from half court or beyond, the ball was going to be in Strus's hands, who was an all-time heater in the final 3 minutes and 30 seconds. He was 7 of 10 from deep for 21 points. All of his points came from beyond the arc, from one of the best shooters in the association. He hit 4 threes, including the 59-foot buzzer beater in the final 3 minutes and 30 seconds. I'm so excited. My voice is cracking. That's how you know it's nearly March in basketball. The hottest team in the NBA is also the best team in the NBA. Make that 9 straight for the Boston Celtics, only up by 2 at the break. At home last night inside TD Garden against the Philadelphia 76ers, the Celtics have a huge second half. They beat the Sixers by 16 in the final 2 quarters for an 18-point victory margin overall, 117-99. Boston covers as a lofty 11.5-point home favorite.
Yeah, no problems. We talked about this game yesterday on the show. The Philadelphia 76ers without Joel Embiid are not a very good basketball team going up against the best basketball team in the NBA, and I didn't mind laying the double digits, and they walked away, the Celtics, with a big second half, 117-99. Scoring is an issue for the Sixers, who seemingly have Maxey and nobody else right now.
So, as we keep the madness up all around basketball from the NBA to the college ranks, what a game it was in the Southeastern Conference yesterday. Stark Vegas, that's Starkville, Mississippi State, the unranked home favorite, laying 4.5 points against a top 20 Kentucky team. Josh Hubbard went off, as John Rothstein shared, one of the best freshmen in all of the SEC. 34 points, so many threes, including one to give Mississippi State the lead late. But Reed Shepherd, the freshman on the other side for UK, responds, hitting the game winner with under a second remaining as Kentucky goes into Stark Vegas and wins 91-89 outright as a 4.5-point dog.
Yeah, one of those games where you saw Mississippi State as the favorite. Looked like you were in control, up 8 at the break. And also, you thought maybe Mississippi State would try to impose their will on Kentucky, as Kentucky scored 117 points over the weekend, defeating Alabama. Yep. They got the 91 against a very, very good defensive team. This Kentucky team is one of those teams you're going to want to watch out for here coming up soon here in March Madness.
A relatively slow pace. Mississippi State, the 11th best defense in all of college basketball, kept Kentucky at bay for most of the first half into the early portions of the second, and then it went haywire. Reed Shepherd, by the way, for Kentucky last night, the freshman off the bench. There are some thoughts, DRS. He could be a lottery pick, and you saw why. 32 points, 11 of 14 from the field, 4 of 7 from deep in the game winner for John Calipari's Cats. Winning on the road in high major college basketball is supposed to be difficult. Don't tell that to Kentucky. Don't tell that to Texas. Don't tell that to Nevada, as we'll talk about in a minute. And don't tell that to BYU. The Cougs go on the road, win outright for the first time as a dog in Big 12 play, 76-68 over Kansas. BYU was down by as many as 11 early in the second half.
Yeah, and three-point shots are the ultimate equalizer. We know BYU likes to shoot more three-point shots than anybody by a wide margin in the Big 12. They go 13 of 34, which is close to 40%, which is what they needed here. No surprise by me. And by the way, team total for BYU in this game, 74.5. They get 76 and a W here. Big-time spot for BYU. Another team to try to watch down the stretch here before we get to March Madness.
A team that shoots the three with the best of them. Houston, the new number 1 team in the country. The 5th different program to be ranked number 1 in the AP poll this year. Handles business in its first game as the top team in the land. 67-59. Plenty more coming around college basketball. Some other news and notes. In his spring training debut with the Dodgers, Shohei Ohtani, DRS, goes yard.
Yeah, no surprise at that. The guy's an elite hitter here. He's going to be at the plate, just not pitching on the mound. And quite frankly, that's probably going to be just fine for those Dodgers this year.
Franchise tag window is open for 6 more days, and the reigning Super Bowl champs, the back-to-back champs, the Kansas City Chiefs, plan to tag and maybe trade cornerback L'Jarius Sneed around the association on a wild night next.
A great big that can block shots, a team that can play defense, and seniors that can put the ball in the hole. That's who you bet on. You don't bet on freshmen. You don't bet on teams that don't play defense. There you go.
I mean, you got to run the guy over to call a foul in a tie game in that kind of a spot. That was a bad job by those refs.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The Lakers lose by double digits last night on the road in Phoenix against the Suns. The Suns get their first victory following the All-Star break, winning by 10 in covering.
Anthony Davis played 42 minutes in that game. LeBron James played 37 minutes in a loss. This is the same thing. It's like repeating this over and over and over. Sure, do you want to win these basketball games? Yes, but you sort of say to yourself, all right, at what cost do we have?
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Like the Minnesota Wild were down by 2 goals today. They were down by 3 goals, actually, today at one point. And they came back and won. Like teams like, the Edmonton Oilers and the Coyote game went back and forth. the NHL really, you could argue, really is the best sport for in-game betting, where you can pull the trigger on both teams.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
After only 4 games on Monday night in the NBA, we had 11 last night on a Tuesday around the association. The next 2 segments looking back on it all live right here on the early line on a Wednesday morning. DRS, we're 2 days out from the month of March. As we shared at the start of the show, often madness in March is only put into the words of college basketball. But for the NBA, the intensity picks up as well. It is the playoff push following the All-Star break. There are less than 25 games remaining for most teams around the association, and we are starting to see that on a nightly basis around the league, including with the best team in the association. The best team is also the hottest team. That would be the Boston Celtics. 18-point home win last night against the Philadelphia 76ers. Still, of course, without Joel Embiid. Philly is struggling. Boston is not. Now 27-3 in Beantown inside TD Garden. 117-99 the final. The Celtics cover as an 11.5-point home favorite.
Yeah, take a look at the Celtics version here, Ben, of the big 3. Jason Tatum, 29 points. Kristaps Porzingis, 23 points. Jaylen Brown, 31 points here. That's how you get it done. And it's one of those games where maybe you thought the Philadelphia 76ers coming in shorthanded could surprise, and they did, quite frankly, in the first half. And again, it's just human nature if you're the Celtics to figure this is an easy win against the Sixers. Let's just go out and play. Then they turned it on in the third quarter, winning that by 33-24 margin. Then the fourth quarter, 31-24. And as I stated, as we were setting up this game, it seems like it's just Tyrese Maxey and nobody else on the Sixers. You take a look at the Sixers starting lineup yesterday. Maxey comes into that ball game 12 of 24 from the floor because he's got to shoot an unbelievable amount of times because there's no other true scorers on the team that could match him. He ends up with 32 points, but you take a look at Tobias Harris, 13. Paul Reed, congratulations on your 0-point effort here in the starting lineup. Buddy Hield, who they brought in to be some of the guy, hey, maybe you're supposed to come off the bench. He's a starter now, only 6 points. Kelly Oubre Jr., we've seen him have some very good nights in a Sixers uniform. Only 3 points here. Now, the question becomes, I told you, Ben, after those 2 games, Milwaukee, one of the front runners in the Eastern Conference, same thing with the Boston Celtics, and it's time to bet the 76ers. They haven't moved off of the 30-1 price to win the NBA Finals here, so I'm waiting to see when that perfect time to jump in will be, because as we know, Joel Embiid is expected to be back. They're going to be a much better team, and maybe you'll get value there. But the Sixers are so bad on offense right now, do I just bide my time and wait to see if I can get the highest number possible? And quite frankly, maybe it never moves off of 30-1. Why, Ben? Because people like the FanDuel Sportsbook know Embiid is coming back, and you can't make that number too ridiculous.
That would be the thing. How long does it go, knowing that this 76ers team more than likely is not going to be the version that qualifies for the postseason? You would hope and expect and really, really need Joel Embiid back for any sort of playoff noise for Philadelphia. The 76ers in 14 games without Joel Embiid have now dropped 12 of their last 16, 14 of those without JoJo. They have been an underdog in 10 of those 16 games, and they have only been 4-6 against the spread. But in those 4 covers, they have won outright 3 times, not last night. Boston improves to 27-3 inside TD Garden, booked as a home favorite in all 30 games, now 16-14 against the number. Boston, 58 games this year, the NBA's best mark at 46-12. They have been a favorite in 56 of 58, 27-26-3. They are expected to be as good as they have been, and they continue to prove their worth. And because of it, Donnie, last week at this time, we had the All-Star break. It was a time to reset and look at the stretch run of this NBA season. I said this a few times, and I know you agreed, with Boston around a plus 125, plus 115 number to win the Eastern Conference, already with such a large margin and a cushion for that top seed out east. It would not take very long following the All-Star break for the C's to become the even money favorite to win the Eastern Conference crown, and that has now happened. Boston, plus 100 to win the Eastern Conference championship.
And it just feels like they are far and away here, Ben. We talk about the Western Conference, how competitive we think it's going to be. And quite frankly, the fight for the number 1 seed in the West is exciting to watch. It's not all that exciting here in the Eastern Conference because the Boston Celtics are by far right now the best team. But even as we look at those odds, they haven't really changed all that much in theory for us, right? We always thought it was going to be the Celtics and the Bucks here. And they're not separated by too far off at the FanDuel Sportsbook. A plus 100 to win the East here on the Celtics and the Milwaukee Bucks at a plus 280 price. We'll get to the Bucks in a little bit because they're starting to show signs of how dominant they can actually be and maybe rounding into form with Doc Rivers. So I preface it by saying I still think the Celtics are the best team in the East and will get to the NBA Finals. But about a week and a half ago, there were a lot more question marks, not on the Celtics, but on other teams like the Milwaukee Bucks, maybe rounding into form at the right time here.
They will be the home favorite in each and every one of their playoff series. Boston, a 7.5-game lead for that number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference with about 25 games or less for every team around the association. That's almost too much ground to make up. It won't be long until Boston clinches that top spot in the Eastern Conference playoff bracket. Milwaukee, the only other team at a $3 price or less, plus 290 for Milwaukee. That All-Star weekend bump, Milwaukee has won 3 straight following the All-Star break, covering in all 3. We'll get to the Bucks in just a minute. A drop-off, though, to 2 other teams in the Eastern Conference that we'll discuss right now. It was the game of the night in the NBA. From 59 feet away, well past half court, Cleveland's Max Strus delivers a game-winning buzzer beater for the Cavaliers. 121-119, the victory for Cleveland at home. Sure, the Mavericks do cover as a 4-point road underdog, but the 59-foot game-winning buzzer beater, the second longest game-winning buzzer beater in NBA history, Max Strus making history last night in the land.
Every time you say this, Ben, it really gets me going. How is that the second longest? Because again, you think about second longest, and you talk, let's just say NFL forms. Well, there's a 108-yard, interception return. It's that makes sense. You really can't go much farther than that. Is why that's the second longest, right? But the fact that you had almost a 3, nobody ever inbounded it from the free throw line and made it. It's crazy to see that how it checks out. But it was such a fun game to watch overall because Max Strus was incredible, and we've seen that throughout his NBA career. He can get hot at the right time from three-point land. Quite frankly, I used to love betting him and including him in 3-point parlay props here in the NBA because he's always one of those guys that's you know what? I don't even worry about the 2-point shot. Take a look at his game last night. I believe he made 7 3-point shots and finished with 21 overall points. That's pretty impressive doing that at that point here. But if we take a look at the Mavericks, Ben, I liked them last night in this game to win it outright. And quite frankly, they should have, if not for that miracle shot from Strus. I thought the 4.5 points was the right side here. And also, Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic. How do you lose this game, Ben? 45 out of Doncic, 30 out of Irving. Both of them unbelievably efficient, too. It just goes to show you the power of some of these NBA games that can sway late. And also, going up against the Cleveland Cavaliers and saying to myself yesterday, what am I going to get out of Donovan Mitchell? Coming back off of those missed couple games, hasn't been himself lately. He drops 31 points in that game, 11 of 20 from the field, and also, Ben, knocking down 7 3-point shots. Great game to watch if you were a fan last night, but if you did have the Dallas Mavericks money line, that's a tough beat there, man.
A very tough beat. You saw the stats there. Luka Doncic has been sensational all season long. 1 rebound away from, I believe, his second or third 40-point triple-double this season. 45, 14 dimes, and 9 rebounds. Donovan Mitchell over his points prop of 26.5, finishing with a team-high 31 points for Cleveland. Kyrie Irving scored 30 as well. That's 75 combined points for the Mavericks. They do cover the number. They are 11-14 against the spread now as an underdog this year. But a moment for Max Strus. An all-time heat check in the final 3+ minutes of regulation last night. 4 of those 7 made in the final 3.5 minutes, including the 59-foot buzzer beater. Again, it looked like a designed and orchestrated play for Cleveland that Max Strus was going to be the guy to launch one from 60, and he did just that. Cleveland has now won 20 of its last 24 games. More around the association next.
A great big that can block shots, a team that can play defense, and seniors that can put the ball in the hole. That's who you bet on. You don't bet on freshmen. You don't bet on teams that don't play defense. There you go.
I mean, you got to run the guy over to call a foul in a tie game in that kind of a spot. That was a bad job by those refs.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The Lakers lose by double digits last night on the road in Phoenix against the Suns. The Suns get their first victory following the All-Star break, winning by 10 and covering.
Anthony Davis played 42 minutes in that game. LeBron James played 37 minutes in a loss. This is the same thing. It's like repeating this over and over and over. Sure, you want to win these basketball games? Yes, but you sort of say to yourself, all right, at what cost do we have?
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Like the Minnesota Wild were down by 2 goals today. They were down by 3 goals, actually, today at one point. And they came back and won. Like teams like, the Edmonton Oilers and the Coyote game went back and forth. The NHL really, you could argue, really is the best sport for in-game betting, where you can pull the trigger on both teams.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
We keep moving around the association. A recap from Tuesday night, bright and early here on this Wednesday morning on the early line. A line that stuck out to both of us yesterday, DRS, and we always give out the disclaimer, despite being the two premier NBA handicappers on this SportsGrid network, we break down games about 8 to 10 hours before they even start, where there are going to be some line moves based on roster availability and projected starting lineups. But a line that stood out to both of us, New Orleans on the road against the Knicks. The Knicks on the second leg of a back-to-back after narrowly beating the Detroit Pistons in a controversial and wild ending on Monday night. It was a 3.5, 4-point number when we were discussing and breaking down the game yesterday, and then we got the update. Jalen Brunson would not play for New York. Line balloons to 6.5, maybe even 7 by the time we neared tip inside Madison Square Garden, and there was a clear reason. The Pels go on the road to MSG and win by 20 plus, 23 to be exact. 115-92. New Orleans covers as that 6.5-point road favorite.
Yeah, you knew the tank was going to be low yesterday for the Knicks, even if they had Brunson and also Hartenstein in that starting lineup, but they didn't. So then you're asking other players to step up even more. So we always joke about, Josh Hart's got to play 40 minutes. But if you look at the starting lineup yesterday, Precious Achiuwa had to play 40 minutes. McBride had to play 40 minutes. Hart again had to play 40 minutes. DiVincenzo, 37 minutes. You're just not going to work out with too many W's here, not having your best players in the lineup, which includes three of your best players, the three best, did not play on a back-to-back for the Knicks yesterday. This was a spot I was looking forward to the Pelicans. And as we said, handicapping this game yesterday, looked really bad in their last two games. But if there's a perfect spot to get right, you have rest. The Knicks don't. They're down starters. Impose your will. And they did that with an easy 115-92 victory yesterday over the New York Knicks. That was one for the good guys that we saw coming a mile away, and it worked out exactly the way we thought it would, Ben.
The Pelicans now 11 games above 500, 35-24 into the 5 spot. They move a half game past the Phoenix Suns for that 5th seed in the Western Conference standings at this current moment. New Orleans, by the way, who has been booked as a favorite in all 4 games since the All-Star break, just 2-2 straight up, but they have covered in both of their victories, booked as that favored side. The New York Knicks have now gone under in 21 of 27 games since the calendar flipped to 2024. And last night's total by regular season standards in the association was pretty small at 215, still stays under. Every starter for the Knickerbockers last night played 30 or more minutes. Tom Thibodeau does not believe in rest unless your name is Jalen Brunson. The Knicks looking to get back and healthy. Brunson with rest, of course, Julius Randle and OG Anunoby here very soon. Now to the best cover team in the NBA, the Oklahoma City Thunder. Another win last night for OKC. They have 41 as they keep pace with Minnesota, who also has 41 victories for the top spot in the Western Conference. But OKC also keeps covering numbers. Now make that 6 straight wins for the Thunder. They have covered in all 6 victories, 112-95 at home, back in Oklahoma City against the Houston Rockets last night. They cover as a double-digit favorite, laying 10 in OKC.
Yeah, we were happy to lay the double digits yesterday because it's come time to lock in here for OKC. We're taking a look at that short sprint to the finish here before we get to the NBA playoffs, and they want to be that number 1 overall seed and playing like it. And also the haves and the have-nots as we talk about now, Ben, which means the Oklahoma City Thunder, absolutely every single game matters that they need to put into the win column. You take a look at the Houston Rockets. Every game doesn't matter to them. They're not going to be making to the playoffs here. They're 5-23 now on the road. They're just looking for the finish line so they can rebuild in the offseason, get another high draft pick, and spend some money in free agency. That was a great performance overall, but just like you can anticipate every single time OKC takes the court and they win, that's a 30-plus point effort out of SGA. He did it again last night. Oklahoma City, 41-17 on the season, one of the fun teams to watch in the NBA. They give you night-to-night action here, and we're no longer starting to say, you know what, Ben, I don't know if they can handle this down the stretch. I believe they will. They are a legitimate contender to be not only the number 1 overall seed in the West, but to actually do damage in the playoffs here. That's a great basketball team.
30-plus points for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in all 6 games on this win streak, of course, including all 4 wins following the All-Star break. His points prop last night, 31.5. The odds makers are on to something. 30-plus in all 4 since the break, only over once because he's had 30, 31, and last night 31 once again. A 36-point performance sandwiched in this 4-game stretch puts SGA over that points prop of 31.5 only once in the 4 games since the All-Star break. Plus 230, the MVP price on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, leading the way for OKC. But keep an eye on Jalen Williams as well. 11 of 17 last night, 24 points, 5 dimes, 5 boards, an emerging second-year star for Oklahoma City. Alperen Şengün on the other side for Houston over his points prop, 23 last night, 19.5 was that listed number. So 41 and 17 for Oklahoma City, 41 and 17 for Minnesota. OKC, best cover team in the NBA, 37-20-1 against the spread. The Timberwolves were laying 12.5 points at home last night against San Antonio. Minnesota wins by 9, but does not cover. Again, 41st win. We have a tie at the top between Oklahoma City and Minnesota. 114-105, though. The Timberwolves do beat San Antonio at home in the Twin Cities last night.
Yep, Ant-Man dropping 34 points in that game. And also, you take a look at it, well, maybe they didn't play so good. It doesn't matter at this point in the season. You're not getting style points and moving up the charts here and getting excited. All you wanted to do if you're the Timberwolves last night is hold serve. You take a look at OKC playing very well at home against another Texas team, handling their business as a favorite as they should. Same thing with the Minnesota Timberwolves here, who had that nice lead, 29-21 after the first quarter. After the second quarter, 29-22, and away they went, just sort of salting that basketball game away. Good win for the Minnesota Timberwolves. This is going to be a fun fight between the T-Wolves and the Thunder down the stretch here, both beating the teams they're supposed to beat, which is a great sign moving forward.
Minnesota right now is 22-21-2 against the spread as a favored side this year. OKC better, 27-15 against the number. That's the distinction between the two teams tied at the top, 41-17 straight up. San Antonio has lost all 4 games since the All-Star break. They have not been great in the win-loss column, but in their 3 games as a double-digit dog out of the 4 since the All-Star break, Victor Wembanyama and the Spurs have covered. Now 24-30 against the spread this year as the underdog. 17 points, 13 boards, 5 dimes, 4 assists for Victor Wembanyama. The prince that was promised, the generational talent, is starting to deliver across the box score each and every night. So Minnesota and OKC, again, tied at the top of the Western Conference standings, 41-17. Both hold a 2-game cushion now over the Denver Nuggets, 3 in front of the Clippers. Those top 4 teams out west separated by just 3 games. The Nugs at 2-1, the Clippers at plus 230, both still better prices than the Thunder and the Timberwolves. 8-1 for OKC, 9-1 now for Minnesota in those Western Conference title odds.
Yeah, one of the few sports that does this, like the NBA, where they like to tell you, at least the odds makers, that the regular season doesn't mean much. And yes, we're getting great stories for OKC and certainly in Minnesota, but once the rubber meets the road in the playoffs, the cream will rise to the top. I'm not so sure about that, because this would be a little bit different if you have the Nuggets and the Clippers as favorites, which they are, 2-1 price and a plus 230 price respectively. And maybe OKC was 5-1 and Minnesota was plus 550. But the fact that they're 8-1 and plus 850 respectively between the Thunder and the Timberwolves, that seems a bit disrespectful, because let's keep in mind also, if things go according to plan, and let's just say either one of the OKC Thunder or Minnesota Timberwolves get that number 1 seed, let's remind ourselves of the fact they're home for the holidays, as I like to say. As long as they handle their business on their home court, they can't be knocked off here. So you're getting some extreme value here between both of those teams. Let's see how it plays out now.
OKC right now, the favorite to be the 1 seed in the Western Conference at plus 150, only 30 cents in front of Minnesota, a plus 180 number on the T-Wolves. OKC, of those 4 teams at the top, by far the easiest schedule here down the home stretch of this NBA season. Are the Atlanta Hawks starting to build something without Trae Young? 2 straight games without Trae, 2 short spreads in favor of the worst covered team at home. That's Atlanta. And they have covered going away in both. 124-97. The victory for the Hawks in the ATL last night, nearly winning by 30 points over the Utah Jazz. Atlanta covers as a short 2-point home favorite.
Yeah, I was wrong on this one. I thought Utah might have been the play in this game, factoring in that Atlanta, you get that little bump. Game number one without your superstar, you play well. DeJounte Murray was fantastic. And if you would have told me DeJounte Murray in game number two only scored 17 points, I'd say, look at that. Utah Jazz probably walk away with a road victory. Now, we know the Utah Jazz aren't a great basketball team, but still trying to fight their way into the play-in rounds, and also on the road, coming into that game last night at 9-20 overall. I thought it was a decent spot for the Jazz, but they did get hammered here. Let's see what we have for Atlanta. Sort of, hey, let's buoy here. Let's be a buoy on the season and wait for our superstar player to get back. Meanwhile, picking up wins left and right. Man, how about the Hawks?
We highlighted the 9.5 assist prop for DeJounte Murray that had plus money to the over 11 dimes last night. Atlanta now 19-39 against the spread this year. That all-star weekend bump for Milwaukee. Damian Lillard wins the three-point contest and the NBA All-Star Games MVP award. Doc Rivers was the coach of the Eastern Conference. They won outright and put up a historic offensive performance. Giannis was the captain. DRS, Milwaukee has won 3 straight following the All-Star break. They have covered in all 3. They have gone under in their last 6 games as well. Milwaukee might be figuring something out. College basketball on a wild Tuesday night next.
A great big that can block shots, a team that can play defense, and seniors that can put the ball in the hole. That's who you bet on. You don't bet on freshmen. You don't bet on teams that don't play defense. There you go.
I mean, you got to run the guy over to call a foul in a tie game in that kind of spot. That was a bad job by those refs.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The Lakers lose by double digits last night on the road in Phoenix against the Suns. The Suns get their first victory following the All-Star break, winning by 10 and covering.
Anthony Davis played 42 minutes in that game. LeBron James played 37 minutes in a loss. This is the same thing. It's like repeating this over and over and over. Sure, you want to win these basketball games, yes, but you sort of say to yourself, all right, at what cost do we have?
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Like the Minnesota Wild were down by 2 goals today. They were down by 3 goals, actually, today at one point. And they came back and won. Like teams like, the Edmonton Oilers and the Coyote game went back and forth. The NHL really, you could argue, really is the best sport for in-game betting, where you can pull the trigger on both teams.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
2 more days until the month of March. 2 more days left in February on this leap year in 2024. But for the last couple of weeks, for the last few nights in college basketball, it has already felt like March down the home stretch of the regular season in conference action. We saw that personified last night in college basketball in the SEC and out in the Mountain West. Maybe, underratedly, the second or third best league in all of college hoops. We start, though, in the SEC. What a game it was in Stark Vegas. Mississippi State, the unranked home favorite, laying 4.5 points in Starkville against 16th ranked Kentucky. And for the second straight night, Donnie, we see this phenomenon that has been a relatively strong trend throughout the regular season. Unranked home favorite laying points against a ranked road foe, where the home favorite has generally been the side. But we saw Baylor go into Fort Worth and win outright as a dog on Monday. We see Kentucky do the same in a wild finish last night in Starkville. Kentucky wins outright 91-89 as a 4.5-point underdog, thanks to the game winner with just a couple of tenths of second remaining on the clock from Reed Sheppard.
What a fun game it was to watch this one play out. And also, let's keep in mind, I continuously say this, maybe the biggest wild card heading into March Madness this year for me is the Kentucky Wildcats, because we see the extreme highs that they can have, such as beating Alabama and dropping 117 points, and then we see them get upset routinely here throughout SEC play. Now, granted, SEC is a very good conference. They now sit at 10-5, which is great, but this was one of those games where, again, the odds makers put it incorrectly, probably thinking so. Kentucky's going to come down from that high over the weekend, go on the road. Mississippi State's going to play defense and are going to knock them off. And it didn't happen. I love this year. And also keep in mind, you take a look at the odds makers. Before this game, they were an underdog. They won this game. They were 30-1 to win the NCAA championship at FanDuel before this game started. You know where they're at today? 30-1 as well. So you're saying to yourself, well, how low can we move them here? Where's the value actually coming up? Because most people, including myself, thought maybe they move a little bit after getting a victory where they were an underdog and technically not supposed to win that game. And also, you take a look at Kentucky. They're usually marksmen from three-point range. 33% as a team last night, which is okay, but they shoot one of the better percentages in SEC play. But typically, Ben, they don't shoot a lot of volume here. They shot 33-point shots on the road, but even more impressive, they made their free throws, 88% as a team, and they shot 55% from the floor against one of the better defensive teams in the SEC. That's a great win for the Kentucky Wildcats, and again, they should be on your radar come March Madness.
Things got crazy in this game. It didn't seem like the odds makers had it correct for about half and a half on top of that. A little bit under 13 minutes left. Mississippi State had a 56-45 lead after just 78 points combined in the first half, where the Bulldogs had an 8-point margin entering the break. Mississippi State was in control. They were covering the number. The pace was slowing down. It was going to stay under that pregame total of 155.5 until all of a sudden it didn't. We saw 102 combined points in the second half, and a ton of that coming in the second half of the second half. Look at the final minute and a half or so of this game. Kentucky actually, despite being down for a good majority of this basketball game, had a big lead over Mississippi State. 7 points with 49 seconds left. Josh Hubbard, the outstanding SEC freshman for Mississippi State, that John Rothstein highlighted yesterday on the show, 3 threes in the final 45 seconds, gave Mississippi State the lead late, or tied the game, I should say, at 89 all with just about 11 seconds left before Reed Sheppard takes it the other way for Kentucky. The outstanding freshman answers. It was the game winner. He had 32 points off the bench. Josh Hubbard led all scorers with 34 points. The freshman on display last night in Stark Vegas. Kentucky now as an underdog, by the way, in SEC play, 3-1 straight up. And against the spread, they have gone over in 3 of those 4 games as a dog in SEC action. Kentucky not great defensively. We saw that last night. But, boy, they can give you a thrill come the month of March for Houston DRS last night at home, hosting Cincinnati as a 13.5-point favorite. The Cougs in their first game as the new number 1 team in the country. They handle Cincy in control pretty much from the jump. However, the Bearcats do come back to cover the number, 67-59. Houston victorious, however, in its first game as number 1 in the country.
Yeah, at an anchor leg yesterday, as we talked about the Pelicans in the NBA, I was like, you know what? I already have them straight. Let me see if I can take a money line talking about the Pelicans and match them up with maybe an alt number. I actually went here to the Cincinnati Bearcats and took the alt number under 64.5. The Bearcats ended up with 59. I said, Donnie, that's a pretty good handicap. Well, if you were watching this basketball game and saw that Cincinnati had 17 points at the break, you shouldn't even have to watch the second half.
Yeah.
But this is where college basketball is hilarious because they scored 42 points talking about the Bearcats in the second half. We also talked about on the show yesterday, how are we going to feel with Houston now, newly minted as the number 1 team? You can't slip up on your home court. Now, granted, they really weren't in danger, but an incredible comeback for Cincinnati late in that basketball game made it much closer than it actually should have been. But still, Houston, they'll take that number 1 in the country, Big 12 win, 12-3 now overall in the season. In conference play, the Bearcats drop to 5-10 in conference play.
Yeah, 12-3 for Houston in the Big 12, in pole position with a 1.5-game advantage right now over Iowa State for a regular season title in the Cougs' first ever year in the Big 12. And let's not forget, Houston entered Big 12 conference action undefeated this season and then dropped their first 2 games in Big 12 play. They have responded in a very big way. Just 6-8-1 now against the number in Big 12 play. However, total does stay under 132.5. Houston entered last night over in 6 of its last 7, despite the Bearcats winning the second half by 1, 42-41. So Houston now 25-3. Donnie, as we had the overall odds outlook for some of the best in the nation yesterday, I used the Ken Palm metrics. The 20 of the last 21 national title winners have ranked top 20 in offensive efficiency, top 25 in defensive efficiency. The Cougars fit that bill. 18th in offense, best defense in all of college basketball. And they have remained number 1 in the Ken Palm efficiency rankings for now more than 90 consecutive days. Number 1 in the AP poll for the first time. They've been atop the country, according to Kenneth Pomeroy, for now nearly 3 months in a row.
And rightfully so. Like, the one thing that you have to like about Houston, again, we talked about it last year, coming from that I don't know, it's not a mid-major, just a group of 5 conference and dominating. How will they do in an actual Power 5 conference? And quite frankly, they have dominated it. But you brought up a great point here. You do want that balance heading into March Madness. It's very important. But the one thing you can always lean on, sometimes you say, you know what, we're a great 3-point shooting team. Live by the sword, die by the sword. More than likely, you're probably going to die by the sword. Hey, Ben, the shots just didn't fall. But you know, can always lean on when you're a great defensive team and your shots aren't falling, you can still D up on the other end and keep yourself in basketball games, which is why Houston is so intriguing heading down the stretch, and rightfully so, listed at the FanDuel Sportsbook here at a 7-1 price to win and cut down the nets. So I'm looking forward to Houston because I know if I get their C performance on offense, I might not even have to worry because they're always going to be on that A-level defense for the most part here, Ben.
It is never going to be easy against the Kelvin Sampson-led team with how they defend the crap out of the basketball. So since he covers on the road last night in Big 12 play, we saw 2 other Big 12 teams go on the road and win outright. Texas against Texas Tech. The Longhorns winning outright in Lubbock as a 3.5-point dog. And what about what BYU did in the Fog, in Lawrence, inside Allen Fieldhouse? The line was working at KU all day long, 5.5 up to 6.5. By the time we got to tip last night, 7.5 points in favor of the Jayhawks. They were up by 11 early on in the opening 5 minutes of the second half. The Cougars rally and do so in a big way. 76-68 for BYU. They win outright as a 7.5-point road underdog in the Fog.
Yeah, you take a look there, too. That was their only loss of the season in the Fog, where, again, you're not used to losing to anybody if you're the Kansas Jayhawks, let alone the BYU Cougars, newcomers here into Big 12 territory. But the one thing we always liked about BYU is if you are an underdog, Ben, what do you want to see? Sure, do you like tempo? It's fantastic. Do you like great defense as well? I talked about this maybe more than any other point in college basketball. Give me a team that's getting points here that can absolutely bomb away from three-point land, because as a defense, Ben, there's nothing you can do if the threes are raining in from one side, because you can have the biggest of the bigs and the best rebounders, but if you're getting 2 points and the other team is knocking down 3 on the other side of the court, you're probably going to get beat. 13 of 34 from three-point range, close to 39% on the road. Knock down your shots, knock down your free throws. They'll keep you in the game. I was very surprised by this. I thought BYU would hang around. I like their points prop at 74.5 because I wasn't sure if they can actually win the basketball game. Well, they won the basketball game and hit their team total. That is a great win for BYU and something that not a lot of teams can do, go into the Fog and beat Kansas.
That is a huge win for BYU because of their road stats this year. I'll detail in just a moment. But that's BYU basketball. 13 of 34, less than 40% from deep. Not the most prolific shooting night for a Cougs team that is one of the best in the country. But they take over 50% of their shots overall in a game from beyond the arc. 34 of 56 last night in terms of their field goal attempts coming from three-point range. That's BYU basketball, baby. And as an underdog in Big 12 play, 0-5 against the spread entering last night. 4 of those 5 games on the road. Now make that 1-5 against the number and a huge road victory outright in Lawrence inside Allen Fieldhouse. Kansas was unbeaten at home this season, not any longer. Now we go to the Mountain West. It's a conference we have spoken at length about, potentially 6 bids to the NCAA tournament. And I think they're going to get 6, including a Nevada team. What a game it was against Colorado State last night. The Wolfpack closed as a 6.5-point underdog. Jared Lucas, one of their leaders, one of the best free throw shooters in the Mountain West, misses 3 of 4 in the final minute to allow Colorado State and Isaiah Stevens, who is a stud, to tie the basketball game up. You saw Max Strus win it for Cleveland at the buzzer from 59 feet. It was probably about a 50-foot half-court buzzer beater for Jared Lucas as the Pack go into Colorado Springs and win outright 77-74. 6 quad 1 wins for Steve Alford's Nevada team, who was looking to make their second consecutive NCAA tournament.
Yeah, Nevada also, that 39-28 lead at the half. So it was one of those like, hey, we didn't think we'd need to make a late three-point shot to even win this basketball game. So credit the comeback here for Colorado State. But as you talked about it, I don't want to say it's a forgotten conference because they are playing really good basketball. But a lot of us East Coasters don't get to stay up late and watch this conference. You also saw games last night like Utah State going into overtime and taking on Fresno here.
Gracious.
And then you double it down with other games like San Diego State escaping a 2-win team out there in the Mountain West with San Jose State. This is a conference that once they get, let's see what they can do on the big stage. A lot of people won't know, but don't be surprised at a couple Sweet 16 runs out of this conference, Ben.
San Diego State wins by 8, but they were a 20.5-point favorite against San Jose State. Fresno State, not a great team, takes Utah State. Both of those teams ranked, as Donnie mentioned, to overtime. Utah State prevails but does not cover as an 11.5-point road favorite. Now some golf drama picking up again next.
A great big that can block shots, a team that can play defense, and seniors that can put the ball in the hole. That's who you bet on. You don't bet on freshmen. You don't bet on teams that don't play defense. There you go.
I mean, you got to run the guy over to call a foul in a tie game in that kind of a spot. That was a bad job by those refs.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The Lakers lose by double digits last night on the road in Phoenix against the Suns. The Suns get their first victory following the All-Star break, winning by 10 in covering.
Anthony Davis played 42 minutes in that game. LeBron James played 37 minutes in a loss. This is the same thing. It's like repeating this over and over and over. Sure, do you want to win these basketball games? Yes, but you sort of say to yourself, all right, at what cost do we have?
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
Like the Minnesota Wild were down by 2 goals today. They were down by 3 goals, actually, today at one point. And they came back and won. Like teams like, the Edmonton Oilers and the Coyote game went back and forth. The NHL really, you could argue, really is the best sport for in-game betting, where you can pull the trigger on both teams.
Sports Rage Late Night. Only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
We round out this opening hour of a Wednesday live right here on the Early Line on SportsGrid with Donnie Rightside favorite theme. That is drama, and even drama in the world of golf. Now, earlier this year, it was rather a surprise before the PGA Tour season got underway that Jon Rahm, who once defended the competitive nature of playing on the PGA Tour and trying to win the best tournaments in the sport against the best fields in the sport, made the jump to LIV Golf. He got paid a lot of money to do so, as they all do, $450 million by PIF to join LIV Golf. In an open sit-down with ESPN's Marty Smith, he was asked about a wide variety of questions, and DRS had this to say, that he texted his good buddy, Tiger Woods, about the joining of LIV Golf and where things stand between LIV and the PGA Tour. Tiger hasn't responded. Tiger has ghosted Jon Rahm, so a shout-out to our guys in the back. The man known for wearing red on Sundays that has a new apparel brand called Sunday Red has left Jon Rahm on red.
Yeah, and what does Jon Rahm care now? He's got the $450 million put in his back pocket. If he wants to square up with Tiger Woods on the golf course, he'd crush him probably in 5 and 4, end up an easy victory if they went match play head-to-head here. Why are we worried about Tiger Woods? Tiger Woods an old relic now on the PGA Tour. And also keep in mind on this, the reason why Tiger Woods isn't with LIV Golf because he's invested in the PGA Tour as a partnership for his stupid TGL Tiger Woods Golf League, which is ridiculous and even got postponed and pushed back another year, probably because how terrible it's actually going to be. Rahm is the winner here. He's got the fat pockets and the great future. Tiger Woods out here, come on, man. He should be ghosting Tiger Woods like, who this? New phone, new number, who this? That's what Rahm should be doing to Tiger. Get off my phone.
One of your worst takes of all time. One of your worst takes of all time. Tiger Woods is golf and will continue to be golf until time ends. Tiger Woods is a legend in the sport. Everybody, even the best golfers, DRS, want his respect, and he doesn't respect Live Golf. Hour number 2 starts in less than a minute.